Listen to our leaders in silence. Yes, please.
Mr. Speaker, I stand before you today with deep gratitude for the opportunity to address this Honorable House for the very last time in the life of this 8th Parliament. It is indeed a privilege to be able to share this final moment with you as we bring this historic Parliament to a close. It goes without saying, Mr. Speaker, that the journey we have shared over the course of this 8th Parliament has been long, eventful, and filled with moments both challenging and rewarding. It should be recalled, Mr. Speaker, that both sides of the aisle, Mr. Speaker, Right Honourable Speaker, it should be recalled that both sides of the aisle changed leadership in the course of the life of this Parliament. On behalf of colleagues, we pay tribute to the leadership which started this journey. Mr. Speaker, we pay tribute to Honourable Osei Mensah Bonsu, the former majority leader. We also pay tribute to Honourable Haruna Iddrisu, the former minority leader. Honourable James Kluche Aveji, the former deputy minority leader. Honourable Muntaka Mubarak, former minority chief whip. Right Honourable Speaker, every chapter of this journey has been marked by its own twist, turns, highs and lows. But in the end, the NDC Minority Caucus delivered and lived up to the expectation of the people. As we reflect on the years, we are reminded of the truth that all things, both good and difficult, have a beginning and an end. Mr. Speaker, as we draw the curtain of this distinguished Parliament, we cannot help but to give thanks to the Almighty God for His guidance and grace throughout this tenure, throughout our tenure. His hands has carried us through every storm and the challenges. We also extend our sincere appreciation to you, Right Honourable Speaker Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, for your exemplary leadership and unwavering direction. You came after a long tradition of competent speakers. However, none of your forebears were burdened with a hung parliament such as yours. You were the first speaker elected from a party that is not in government, but you were well prepared for it. From your days, Mr. Speaker, as a minority leader, a majority leader, and a deputy speaker. Your wisdom, patience, and calmness, even under pressure during turbulent times. Your ability to manage this Parliament with fairness, even in most challenging circumstances, has made you an outstanding statesman. To the members of the NDC Minority Caucus that briefly became the Majority Caucus, I express my profound gratitude for the support and cooperation that I, along with my colleagues in leadership, received from you over the past 2 years. Together, we have achieved numerous milestones, and I'm confident that history will be kind to us for our collective efforts. At the stroke of midnight today, the NDC caucus will re-enter this chamber with a strength of an unprecedented 2/3 majority. Mr. Speaker, this, I believe, serves as a time. Right Honourable Speaker, this 8th Parliament has indeed been historic in many respects. For the first time under the Fourth Republic, we witnessed a Parliament that was evenly split, with each of the political parties securing 137 members each. We also saw 40 female members of Parliament equally distributed across the political parties. One independent member of Parliament who serves as the second Deputy Speaker, and a Speaker who hails from the opposition. This, in every sense, Mr. Speaker, gave us the first hung Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Honourable colleagues, let us be proud to be part of this historic Parliament. From the very start, the stage was set for a roller coaster journey, particularly during the election of the Speaker. That fateful night kept the nation on edge, with many fearing for the safety of our democracy. That event that unfolded climaxed by the regrettable and unwarranted military invasion of this august House, will remain a blot on Ghana's democratic history. Mr. Speaker, we pray that such a moment is never repeated. Yet, Mr. Speaker, from the dark night emerged a bright dawn. A new parliament under the Speaker, who is not from the ruling party, the first of its kind in Ghana's history. Mr. Speaker, despite facing significant challenges, this House has remained steadfast, navigating many turbulent waters, including certain actions by some members that sought to undermine the independence and authority of Parliament as a co-equal branch of government. Right Honourable Speaker, while many hope that this Parliament would usher in a new era of collaboration for the national good, some fear that it would deepen political divisions. Nonetheless, I can confidently say that the NDC caucus has consistently upheld the supreme national interest in everything we did. At every turn, we had been guided by one principle: to do what is right for the people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, we complemented with superior, constructive, and alternative proposals. Although, Mr. Speaker, our views were often ignored, Times has proven that many of the positions we took on critical national issues were correct. Right Honourable Speaker, one of the most significant and fiercely debate we witnessed in this Parliament was the protracted struggle over the electronic transfer levy bill, the famous e-levy. The NDC minority stood firm with the people of Ghana against this unpopular tax, while our colleagues on the other side supported it. Right Honourable Speaker, despite the strong resistance from within and outside this chamber, the e-levy was foisted on the people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, we raised alarms also about multitude of new taxes imposed on the people of Ghana. In fact, over 40 in total that burdened the people of Ghana and stifled business growth. At the same time, we witnessed proposals that were supposed to grant $450 million in tax exemptions to crony businesses. In the spirit of patriotism, Mr. Speaker, we demanded justification of this request, especially as Ghanaians continue to suffer from extreme hardship. Right Honourable Speaker, I believe that posterity will surely vindicate our warnings regarding the reckless borrowings and economic mismanagement under the President Akufo-Addo and Alhaji Bawumia's government. Records available to this House shows clearly that, Mr. Speaker, some individuals in government profited to the tune of $159.3 million in transaction advisory fees, whilst the country was saddled with an unsustainable public debt. We also spoke out against the mismanagement of the central bank, which led to the negative equity of $55.1 billion Ghana cedis in 2022, and a cumulative loss of 71.3 billion Ghana cedis between 2022 and 2023. Mr. Speaker, as a result, the Bank of Ghana became policy insolvent by end of year 2023. Mr. Speaker, the illegal printing of money at the Bank of Ghana to finance government expenditure contributed to the inflationary crisis we saw. That resulted in over 850,000 Ghanaians falling into extreme poverty. Mr. Speaker, the management of the central bank also illegally wrote off approximately 48 billion Ghana cedis of government indebtedness without parliamentary approval, in a blatant disregard to the Public Financial Management Act, Act 921. Right Honourable Speaker, at the height of this crisis, the management of the central bank supervised the award of questionable contract for the construction of an ultra-modern 250 million head office and another ultra-modern governor's residence at a cost that is unknown to the public. Our concerns, Mr. Speaker, about the mismanagement of the state-owned Ghana Cocoa Board, ECG, GIHOC, STC, PBC, among others, were also ignored. Right Honourable Speaker, for 7 consecutive years, Ghana Cocoa Board recorded losses of approximately 11 billion Ghana cedis. The cocoa production also declined drastically under the current government from approximately 1 million metric tons a year in production to now almost 400,000 metric tons. For the first time in 32 years, international banks rejected Ghana Cocoa Board request for a syndicated loan to finance the purchase of Ghana cocoa. Right, Honorable Speaker, we cannot be silent about our opposition to yet another unpopular government policy, the imposition of a regulation called the Import Restriction Regulation 2023. This detested proposed legislative instrument sought to vest unfettered and unchecked powers in the hands of the minister responsible for trade to determine who qualifies to import into the country of certain goods. Similarly, Mr. Speaker, we also raised red flags over dubious Finance Ministry SML-induced $100 million a year contract for so-called revenue assurance. After initial feet-dragging and refusal by the President Akufo-Addo to release the KPMG audit report, it finally emerged that the SML was paid a whopping 1.4 billion Ghana cedis for no work done. Right, Honorable Speaker, the Ghana Revenue Authority further failed to withhold taxes worth 13.38 billion million Ghana cedis from these payments. As we speak, unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, the entity called SML is still ripping off the taxpayer for no work done. Right, Honorable Speaker, we on this side expressed several concerns over the government handling of illegal mining menace that engulfed our nation. We are also on record to have cautioned that its pretentious fight against this existential threat to our collective survival will soon have dire consequences on us. Amid this facade of the fight, right, Honorable Speaker, high-ranking government officials, NPP functionaries, were accused by the then Cabinet Minister, Professor Frimpong Boateng, of promoting and engaging in illegal mining. So, Speaker, Galamsey later became a free-for-all enterprise involving MMDCs and other party functionaries. The records will bear us out that we on this side called for an honest response. Right, Honorable Speaker, again, our concerns were ignored. The scale of corruption and waste during this period has been staggering, alarming, and heart-wrenching. Mr. Speaker, the more we on this side spoke out, the more corruption and wastage festered. Promoting this as a result prompted the Catholic Bishop Conference to decry and describe the situation as a massive, uncontrolled corruption under this administration. Mr. Speaker, scandals became a daily occurrence as we were treated to blatant abuse of office and plundered the public funds. Right, Honorable Speaker, we also saw a misuse of COVID-19 funds. The malfeasance that characterized the 13th African Games, the 500 million Ghana cedis National Service ghost names scandal. We saw the brazen attempt to shell out state hotels to a cabinet minister, and free-for-all grabbing of state lands are, Mr. Speaker, but very few that we need to mention. Right, Honorable Speaker, we also had to contend with the erosion of the independence of critical state institutions. Many of these institutions were filled with partisan elements who undermined due process to please the regime in power. So, Speaker, journalists who exposed corruptions were subjected to brutal crackdown and dissenting voices and were silenced. Right, Honorable Speaker, the silence, the insistence of the Electoral Commission of Ghana to adopt the Ghana card as the sole document of the registration for the registration of voters, even though millions of Ghanaians were yet to be issued their Ghana cards by the National Identification Authority, cannot escape mention. After eventual yielding to the resistance from the gallant NDC Minority Caucus, the Electoral Commission decided to conduct voter registration exercise solely at its district offices instead of the designated polling stations. But for our voices, Mr. Speaker, that were heard loud on these matters, the Electoral Commission would have succeeded in denying millions of Ghanaians their right to register and vote. The Electoral Commission was once again forced to beat a retreat on its popular decision to outlaw the use of indelible ink during the 2024 general elections. In all of these instances, our vigilance, insistence, and accountability saved Ghana's democracy. Right Honorable Speaker, the past 8 years have been tough for all of us, a lesson on how not to govern a country of governance and mismanagement. Mr. Speaker, it is deeply concerning that those who oversaw such disastrous performance in government would have the audacity to adorn themselves with accolades to the chagrin of the people of Ghana. Right Honorable Speaker, I was surprised to see some of them being awarded with highest state honors. Right Honorable Speaker, at the personal level, I have had to pay a heavy price for my stance against the government mismanagement. Mr. Speaker, my recent prosecution, or call it persecution, by the Attorney General over frivolous and trumped-up charges was calculated to silence, intimidate, and completely extinguish a known dissenting voice. Right Honorable Speaker, my crime, Mr. Speaker, was that I sounded alarm bells on an economy that was being mismanaged and ruined by an act and omissions of a select few in government. The fact that my prosecution began in the wake of the tussle over e-levy should not be lost on anyone, that I became an instant target for the regime. Mr. Speaker, I was charged on the Christmas Eve, a few days after the rejection of the e-levy and the 2022 budget. Right Honorable Speaker, from that point, the Attorney General and the Minister responsible for Justice, Godfred Yeboah Dame, in whom the prosecutorial powers of the state is vested, was determined to deploy all crude tactics, including the use of subterfuge, to achieve his ends of malicious prosecution just to satisfy the regime. Mr. Speaker, the whole world witnessed how a supposed Minister of Justice set out to coach, cajole, and coerce another accused person standing trial together with me to falsify his testimony and skew it in such a manner as to enable him to procure a conviction at all costs against an innocent person. In the process, Mr. Speaker, Godfred Yeboah Dame, who is the principal legal officer of state, engaged in crimes such as witness tampering, conspiracy against accused person, fabrication of evidence to pervert the course of justice, and professional misconduct, contrary to the ethics of the very legal profession he heads. I believe this has been the story for many Ghanaians during this period. Right Honorable Speaker, never in the history of our nation have we witnessed this level of gross professional misconduct on the part of no less a person than the Attorney General and the Minister responsible for justice, who is the leader of the bar and bears a high responsibility to adhere to the rules of ethics of the legal profession. Mr. Speaker, I'm not against prosecution of wrongdoing. Whilst our democracy is founded on the rule of law and holding public officers accountable, I pray that never again should any of our citizens become a victim of this level of injustice and abuse of prosecutorial powers that I was subjected to. Right Honorable Speaker, despite the painful experience, I count it as part of the hazards of politics and service to the people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, as the clock strikes midnight, a new chapter begins. To those returning to the 9th Parliament, I say congratulations. Colleagues who will not be part of the 9th Parliament, I urge you to walk with your heads high. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to say that Ghana appreciates your service and your contributions. Be proud because you have worked for Mother Ghana. I look forward to the 9th Parliament, characterized by mutual cooperation, diligence, and hard work in pursuit of the aspiration of our people. At this juncture, Mr. Speaker, let me thank the gallant 137 members of the NDC caucus on behalf of the NDC leadership. Special thanks goes to Honorable Emmanuel Ama Kofi Boah, the Deputy Minority Leader, Honorable Govins Kwame Abuja, the Minority Chief Whip, Honorable Ahmed Ibrahim, the First Deputy Whip, Honorable Comfort Doyo, the Second Deputy Whip, chairpersons and ranking members from the NDC caucus, the Speaker, the backbench of the NDC Minority Caucus. And let me also thank the Honorable Collins Dauda, the one who has contested every single election since 1992, for his hard work and dedication to democracy. Mr. Speaker, colleagues, aside our disagreement, there were moments of cooperation across the aisle. I want to use this opportunity to thank all members of the 8th Parliament. To the Parliamentary Service, thank you for your hard work. To the Parliamentary Press Corps, what could we have done without you? You have been an amazing group of people that we cannot stop but to thank you. Thank you once again. Fellow countrymen and women, thank you for enduring the worst government in Ghana's history. Mr. Speaker, I dare say that to fellow Ghanaians, don't be despaired. There is hope. God bless our homeland Ghana and make our nation great and strong. Right Honorable Speaker, I cannot end without mentioning the Honorable Cletus Avoka, the former leader of this House, who has been one person that I've always resorted to for advice. I thank you so much for your cooperation and hard work. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, it's now the turn of the Majority Leader and the Leader of the House.
Right Honorable Speaker, thank you for this opportunity to give these closing remarks, putting out my own views about this House as it comes to an end by midnight of today. It's a moment of emotion for me, having had the opportunity to lead the House a little over 9 months, and the fact that, Mr. Speaker, by tomorrow, I will be seated to the left of Mr. Speaker, leading the charge for and on behalf of the minority. Mr. Speaker, you rightly paraphrased your description of this 8th Parliament on various platforms and fora, and stated that it's been remarkable, characterized by unique milestones and challenges that have tested our democratic principles and governance. Mr. Speaker, one defining feature of this Parliament was its near equal composition, 137 members from each side and 1 independent member. Notably, this Parliament elected the Speaker of the House from a party of the opposition, something which was and still continues to be novel development to our democracy. We also had an equal number of female representation from both sides of the aisle. 20 female members apiece, bringing female representation to 40, that account for 14.5%, the highest female representation in Parliament ever recorded in our 4th Republic. This Parliament, at both sides of the House, has had the course to change their leadership in order to give opportunity to some members to serve in the front bench. It is therefore right to conclude that the 8th Parliament truly pushed our parliamentary democracy to its limits and tested how far we can go with our practice of parliamentary democracy. Mr. Speaker, I rose from deputy leader to majority leader. In my days as a deputy leader in this House, I received a lot of good counsel, not only from our side, but from my friends opposite. I remember the quiet moments where they would call me to their office and engage me in spite of our disagreements in this House. Mr. Speaker, permit me to mention a few of them and thank them for the purpose of Hansard. Honorable Harun Idrisu, Honorable Rashid Pelpo, Honorable Cletus Avoka, my respected senior Adaba and brother, Honorable Ahiafo. Mr. Speaker, I also received good counsel from many of my own side. The first Deputy Speaker, Honorable Joe Osei-Wusu, the second Deputy Speaker, was also very handy for us to discuss issues about governance in the chamber. But, Mr. Speaker, not the least is the man I succeeded. For the purpose of Hansard once again, Mr. Speaker, this is a man who took it upon himself to get me to pay attention to parliamentary business. I always remember with nostalgia his first official travel with me all the way to Hanoi, Vietnam. In his hand was his standing orders and the Constitution. He urged upon me to always read the standing orders and encouraged me to aspire for the leadership of the House. I am happy to say that in my days as his deputy, although he is not a lawyer, he was well versed with the standing orders and the Constitution. Before I could say a word, he knows where a particular provision is. And we worked together, gave me the opportunities to shine, and eventually made way for me to succeed him. Honorable Osei Mensah Bonsu, I thank you most sincerely. You defined my leadership. You played a key role. We may have our differences, but I want to say that you have made it possible for me to stand on my feet today, especially as I enter opposition and to lead our side in minority. It is that which I learned from you that I will depend on to make a headway in my leadership. Mr. Speaker, there were great elderly senior members on my side, such as Honorable Kennedy Japon, Honorable K.T. Amon, who were also with me in moments of difficulty. I should thank also, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues in leadership, Honorable Arnold Dompre, the Chief Whip, a workaholic being. Mr. Speaker, there were a number of times he had to sleep in Parliament to organize and make things work for me to take over as a leader. He and his deputies worked tirelessly in assisting me to manage a very difficult House. Honorable Dompre, Honorable Habib Idrisu, Honorable Alexander Tete, I say God bless you. I'm thankful to you for all you did. And my able deputy, she was more than a mother to me, to calm me in difficult moments. Her wise counsel has made it possible for me to lead the House till this day. We are both Catholics. She never ceased to remind me of the power of our rosary as Catholics. the morning prayers, the morning encouragements, calling me, Kwamena, let's pray. Madam Patricia Appiagyei, God bless you for all you did. And to my colleagues opposite, you made the best come out of me. I was always watching the videos of Honorable Eric Opoku. This is a man who can punch extremely hard with facts. You dare not challenge him, and I dare not challenge him because he will take you to another level. Honorable Kwame Agbodza, we were there together in opposition. Those days, we struck a good accord. We had our own esprit de corps. And when you assumed leadership, I thought I could explore that for a good way forward. You often disappointed me. But you got the best out of me. Kwame, thank you. And Ahmed Ibrahim, the deputy whip, he did all the dirty jobs. We disagreed. And I will call Ahmed and say, Ahmed, I thought you were a Pentecost elder. Why are you doing this to me? And he says that, Mensro, anyhow. But the next moment, he will hit me hard. But Mr. Speaker, I also got somebody amongst them to pound small. I also took advantage of his emotions, and I provoked him lightly so that I also settle scores. My senior brother, Honorable Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa. Mr. Speaker, I recall at one point you had to settle the matter where I would constantly parading and flagging my standing orders. And he felt it. At the end of the day, that was the beauty of democracy. And I told my brother, no more Ato. Mr. Speaker, Ato will talk to you nicely. Have a good conversation. By 5 o'clock, he says, we can't support you. Mr. Speaker, combative on a number of occasions. There were those who didn't know how the heat was on me and were saying that you are majority leader, reach out. Mr. Speaker, the minority were such a tough, stubborn, difficult side. Mr. Speaker, in power. And I understand, rightly so. The number of government business I would have loved to complete for political expediency and perhaps for purposes of principle, I did not get the support from my respected colleague. Many were the disappointment, Mr. Speaker. I'm sad that as a House, we could not deal with the following. One, the 1D1F. Mr. Speaker, I'm still of the conviction that this was a government policy to help the private sector. Mr. Speaker, being from the private sector fraternity, there was no way I viewed the initiative as a giveaway, as a freebie, especially so when the majority side had compromised and agreed to take away the raw materials component of the support to the private sector. But again, our colleagues could not support, not even to allow us to take. We vetted them, but could not pass them. Is also one disappointment to me as a leader. These are citizens of our country who, for no fault of theirs, have earned that call to serve at the highest court of the land. Mr. Speaker, I will not belabor their CV, but we know that these are men, these were citizens of substance who could have contributed their quota in enriching the jurisprudence of our country at the highest level. But again, we could not reach an agreement. And to date, I had to look in my direction. Look in my direction. I'm addressing some of your mischief. Mr. Speaker, Again, we could not have a deal, and we've left it hanging. It has become odious. Mr. Speaker, I wish, as a House, we could have handled the World Bank $250 million facility to support the financial sector. This was also a facility that had gone through the committee process, and the House could have carried it for government to cushion the financial sector. But again, for good reasons known to my friends opposite me, we could not have a deal. But, Mr. Speaker, the Frenchman will say, c'est la vie. This is life. We cannot push anymore, but to look forward to a new day, to also hold the new government feet to the fire. Get them to be accountable, get them to do what is right, and not get personal, but rather enrich governance of our country. Mr. Speaker, this government has achieved so much for the people of Ghana, but not a perfect government. Mr. Speaker, if our friends will today talk about corruption, I want to remind them that the call of corruption was on them when they previously ruled this country for 8 years. Many children whose parents could not afford secondary education had the opportunity of enjoying free SHS. Mr. Speaker, today, Ghanaians, 5.7 million of them, have benefited from free SHS. Mr. Speaker,
another state of the economy.
Not only did we have 5.7 million Ghanaian children benefiting from free SHS, we also had government introducing free TVET. Technical education was made free.